What do you feel strongly about that most people don't care about? When I get exceptional customer service or even just above average service anywhere, I like to call up the manager or the corporate customer service line and say so. I've done it for the most insignificant yet still pleasant interactions at like Taco Bell or Chipotle. I feel like good work should be rewarded, and even if it never makes it back to the person or they never get anything out of it, I like to think I made the customer service rep's day a bit better since they didn't have to listen to a complaint and could hear something positive instead. I'm really sort of militant about it actually, because nowadays a lot of things suck, and when they don't, it's nice. The lack of changing tables in men's public restrooms. I am a parent too, not just my wife. Plus when we are out without my wife it can be horrible if there isn't one. Keeping my kitchen knives razor sharp. Once those tomatoes start fighting back, it's time for the whetstones to come out. Except when you have a roommate and you have to sharpen your knives every day just to be able to cut through a softened stick of butter. TV aspect ratios. I'd rather see black backs on either side than a 4:3 image stretched to 16:9. Also native resolutions. A colleague runs a 1440p monitor at 1080p and it drives me crazy. I'm also a lot of fun at parties. What really bothers me is when 4:3 shows in syndication just get the top and bottom chopped off when the network uses a zoom to pretend the show is in 16:9. The shots almost always look claustrophobic to me. I'm a garden landscape enthusiast. I hate when new buildings are made and the garden space that's put with them is poorly planned, putting trees or plants that will be a big problem a decade or two down the line in inconvenient places, putting in species that will die easily or make a lot of mess when the owners or council inevitably neglects them, lacking in trees, like a new suburb where all the front yards are just lawns and small shrubs with nothing that would ever grow taller than a house. Seriously man, you need to plant trees if you want that new street to age gracefully. Expensive landscaping projects given no aftercare. Seeing several of the plants on new turf dead within weeks after planting because no one watered them while they were still trying to establish themselves during that midsummer heatwave. Or when newly planted saplings get blown over during windstorms and just left leaning that way and that's how they will grow. Seeing dead trees or bushes that are clearly meant to be part of a row not removed, and if they are, they aren't replaced. So you have random gaps in what was intended to be a regular placement of the same species. Dead branches or palm fronds remaining on trees for really long periods of time. Sometimes I actually wish I could fly just so I can float up there and cut them off myself. Put the cart back in the cart corral. You pushed it around for a freaking hour. 15 more seconds isn't gonna kill you and will probably save someone's car, you butthole. I love when people can't bother to walk 20 feet to return it, so they leave it in the empty space next to my car and the wind blows it straight into my side panel. It makes my day. I think everyone has a hill they'll gladly die on, and libraries are mine. The public library has to be one of the greatest and least likely inventions in history. Think about it for a second. There's probably a building in your town, perhaps more than one, perhaps a grand and ornate building, almost certainly on land that could house something else, that's devoted to the idea of free at the point of use public education and entertainment. Anyone, rich or poor, can go to that building, and with minimal fuss take out enough reading material to last them multiple lifetimes, all with the understanding that, in a couple of weeks, they'll bring it back in good condition so that other people can use them, and people actually do it, almost every time. I can't think of any other system that operates on such a profound level of trust in the positive side of human nature, but there you go. That's libraries for you. And sure, there are some people who advocate for getting rid of library funding. Let people pay if they want to use it, they say. Let the free market step in, they say. Netflix for books, they say. Well, I say frick those people right in the ear. A library is so much more than just a room full of books. It's one of the great social levelers. It's computer access for people who can't afford it at home. It's social groups and a meeting place for old people. It's books and movies and music. It's recommendations for things you haven't yet discovered. It's evening classes for people who need basic English, maths and computer skills. It's a place where young parents can go and encourage a child's voracious reading appetite without breaking the bank. and where a child with a hunger for books can go and figure out what her tastes are in a completely risk-free environment. Heck, sometimes it's just a place to kill an hour when it's cold outside and you're waiting for a bus, and that's fine too. Moving to a subscription model might save you a fractional amount of your tax bill, but it would take necessary services away from the very people who need them most. That's a level of frick you, Jack. I've got mine that I couldn't even begin to sanction, and they are dying in a lot of places because people don't use them, because people don't get outraged when politicians cut their funding, because programs like Overdrive, that's free ebooks delivered direct to your device with your library card, aren't as well known as they should be, because people don't know you can get out of state access to libraries worth of audiobooks for free, or for far cheaper than a yearly Audible account, because they keep strange hours as a result of this limited funding, which makes people less likely to visit, which makes them an even bigger target for cuts, and that's a dreadful shame. Use your local library, folks, you'll be sorry when it's gone. Because programs like Overdrive, that's free ebooks delivered direct to your device with your library card, aren't as well known as they should be. I hope more people take note of this. Discovering that my library lends ebooks was one of the happiest days of my life, or maybe adulthood. Bees. I plant native wildflowers and trees that I know make lots of flowers so that the local bees have enough to eat. I just bought a decent amount of land and am considering raising a few hives in the next few years. If bee populations continue to decline, we are royally screwed. The fact that everyone is okay with doing free advertising for their car dealership on their license plate cover. Are you kidding me? Car dealerships are the main reason cars are so freaking expensive. Also, they are ugly as heck. Get a nice looking license plate cover, people. Excel's R1C1 formula references. If you constructed your spreadsheet properly, it allows you to identify the subtle problems so easily. In the movie Cheaper by the Dozen, their last name is Baker. They made a second movie named Cheaper by the Dozen too, where they had another child, making 13. Why the actual heck did they not name it Cheaper by the Baker's Dozen? Better fish, goldfish, and other disposable pets. They should not be living in a bowl. The ammonia from their crap builds up until it burns their gills and they suffocate. Yet everyone seems fine with letting countless fish die in their care because they're just fish. Obviously, I'm not going to act like it's on par with abusing a dog or cat, but it's still totally unnecessarily cruel and careless. There is no living daycare pet. There is no easy, no maintenance pet. Put the time and care forth to provide an animal with a good life or don't get one at all. Owning pets is a privilege, not a right. Clearly, you've never had a pet rock. Properly loading a dishwasher, organizing everything into rows, proper places, and making sure to make efficient use of space. Hello honey, I'm sorry, again. I lose my mind when people ask for my phone number, email address, etc. when I'm trying to buy something at the store. The people in front of me and behind me always give it so freely. All you need for me to buy something is my freaking money. I agree, but please be aware the clerks don't like asking either. Worked one of those jobs for a while and we're forced to or we get penalized. The fact the Hollywood keeps rebooting and reusing the same ideas over and over again, instead of thinking of new concepts to grab people's interest. They remake an 80s classic, do a book adaptation, or pour $1 billion into another blue CGI alien shitfest. Kinda grinds my gears that executives get to make living out of half-assing everything. You should never read the mythologies and saga of ancient Greek and adjacent places. You can't go to 90% of movies afterwards. South American and some Asian stuff is genuinely weird and interesting though. Also, the Asian stuff will be turned to movies as pseudo deep thought in 20 years time. Old Biff should not have returned to the 2015 he left from after giving his younger self the sports almanac. Not 20 minutes later Doc Brown even explains why on a chalkboard. Privacy. The BBC iPlayer wants me to register to view it online. Why? Why do you want that information? And the insurance company wants to put a black box in my car. Why? Why do you need to know where I go and how long I spend in a place? The wife wants my password for my computer and phone. Why? Don't you trust me? But apparently questioning such things makes you either paranoid or a cheat. Percentage points. When people say an increase from 80% to 90% is a 10% increase, it drives me up the wall. It's a 10-point increase, sure, but saying 10% increase is flat out wrong and misleading. Cutting down trees for no reason. My town has cut down all the trees in the downtown area twice in the past 10 years, not trimmed them, cut them down, hired a company to remove the roots, planted new trees, and subsequently chopped those down, removed roots and planted new ones again. Either plant a tree you're going to keep or don't plant the dang tree. It infuriates me when someone chops down a healthy tree on their land or when swaths of trees are chopped down from the sides of a road. Not even close to the road. I mean zero chance of them ever falling on the road, yet they still get chopped down. Asking how many bags I will need at the checkout. Nobody else seems to think this is a stupid question, but it is. The correct answer is I don't know. Guessing how many bags an entire conveyor of shopping is going to fill is impossible. It's like a fairground guessing game. The most annoying thing is that it's the cashier asking, "You're here all day, you make a guess. It'll probably be better than mine. UKBTW. OBV, this doesn't happen if you don't pay for bags. I live in a US state that doesn't charge your tax for bags, and this is hilarious. Don't let your kids chase Kit-Kat birds on the ground. They're just chilling, trying to eat, minding their own. If your kid ran screaming and kicking into a group of kittens, you'd stop them. So stop them doing it to other creatures too. Not only is it really mean to the poor birds, they are flying up into the faces of anyone else passing by. Stop it. The lore of fictional universes, especially seemingly uncomplicated ones. Example, Bojack Horseman. Humans and anthropomorphic animals live side by side. Have animal people always existed? What was their relationship with early humans like? Secretariat shows that animals have existed at least since the 70s, and the recognizably American culture and references to real-world events implies that history is essentially the same. But what does that history look like? Human civilizations have risen and fallen thanks to animals. So what does it look like when they can talk back? There is a scene where a cow waitress serves a human a steak, her tone indicating that it's a faux pas. Are cows still slaughtered for their meat? Were animals slave races? Did the Mongols conquer Asia riding piggyback on angry horsemen? So many questions. IDK if you've seen the newest season yet, but they kind of touch on that in one episode. There's a chicken farm where human-sized chickens are intentionally dumped down, deprived of education opportunities, and the farm is run by a family of chickens. Reminds me of real life. Humans stepping on each other and viewing each other as cattle so that they can prosper on another's misfortune. The use of the Oxford cereal, I'm in marketing and write quite a bit, and when I see companies that don't use the Oxford comma in online materials, I'm annoyed. I know this is style and region specific, but it makes reading a list easier. I have to stop myself when I read materials that I feel should have used it to understand if it's a list or it's describing an object. Muscle shirts should never have hoods. How dangerous it is for people to let their animals walk around their car, sit on their laps while they drive. First, the distraction is pointless and needless. Second, your animal will die even in a very minor accident. Proper regulation of homeschooling. There is next to no regulation of homeschooling in my state. In my 12 years of homeschool education, I was never checked up on by the state or by the school system. Homeschooling has turned into the best way to isolate and abuse children. There's no third party to notice patterns of abuse, no one to check to see if educational standards are being met, and no one to make sure that the kids are being properly socialized. My case ended up being better than some. I was able to register for community college classes at 19 to fill in the gaps in my education before transferring to a 4-year university. A lot of the homeschool kids I grew up with didn't have the same luck. No one should have the right to withhold an education from a child, even if it is their own child. I don't understand why it's customary to leave the toilet lid up when the toilet isn't being used. Not the seat, the lid. Who the heck wants to look at a toilet bowl while they're brushing their teeth? I always close mine because my cat tries to drink from it and usually ends up falling in if I don't. When you're on Wheel of Fortune, stop wasting your money on freaking vowels. There are 21 other letters in the alphabet. Guess one of them. My grandmother, when she was alive, used to scream at the TV when people bought vowels. Metal music and its portrayal in the media, whether it's movies, books, TV shows, the news, it's almost always viewed as a satanic or scary screamo noise instead of looking at the entire genre, which isn't just consisting of people screaming. There's so much good metal that the average person would love if they gave it a chance, but they won't because of their view of what it actually is. It pisses me off. We should substantially invest more in nuclear energy until a better alternative can be found. Nuclear energy is per unit of energy produced vastly safer and more efficient than any other form of generating electricity, and governments which give into pseudo-scientific hysteria about the supposed danger of nuclear energy should be ashamed. I'm looking at you, Germany. Molten salt reactors would be so awesome if they resurrected them. Could totally solve all our spent uranium oxide fuel issues. Alas, it seems like it's not to be. Video games. I don't care if you think only kids play them. I'm 31. Average gamer age in the UK is apparently 36. Some of the best stories and memorable moments in history for me have come from video games. If done well, they surpass movies. Grammar issues. They've been so rampant and it seriously bothers me. How do you mix up lose and loose? It's still so common on social media. Or 2 to 2? Is it really that difficult? People always say the internet isn't an English paper, but is that really a valid excuse to write like an idiot? If it's natural for you to type your own native language wrong, doesn't that say something about the culture? I forgot to add, it's so bad that if someone actually uses grammar properly, he is seen as smart. Really? Smart for using your own language properly? What the frick? One of my peeves is adding an apostrophe before every S. This is my book of recipes. Let's go look at used cars. All these snakes are really good at hicing. Frick off. Mopeds have pedals, 16-17 inches wheels, and are ridden like a bicycle. Scooters have no pedals, 14 inches or small wheels, and are ridden like a toilet. The portrayal of Asian men in media as feminine, nerdy, or can't get laid. Also the unspoken issue of many Western Asian women refusing to date Asian men. A small bit of self-sacrifice to keep other people and things moving smoothly. Like I'll not push the button at a crosswalk that I know would change the lights so that more cars can go through, and I'll just wait for the gap in cars to inevitably come up. If 4 cars have to stop at a light for 30 seconds or I have to wait 15 seconds to walk across, it's a no-brainer that I'll take the latter. In the gym, if someone is carrying heavy weights back to the rack, I'll always yield to them and give them a clear path ahead of me. That might sound like common courtesy, but you'd be surprised with how many people go ahead and think that it's okay to walk the same way you would if they weren't straining with 100 extra lbs in their hands. If I'm walking my dog and I know that a car would stop if I kept walking how I was walking, I would slow down to make sure that they didn't feel obligated to do so. I like to try to keep everything as fair as I possibly can when it comes to stuff like that. I wish more people did that instead of being selfish and or not thinking about the convenience of others. It's a really minor and specific thing, but it comes up entirely too often and bugs the crap out me. Setup. Sci-fi or fantasy universe. Main character gets thrown back in time. Main character wants to get back to their own time. Main character has access to stasis technology magic that will easily last until they are back to their own time. Nobody ever realizes, hey, going forward in time is easy, you just freaking wait. I hate it when I am watching straight P and then there is a guy's balls in front of me. I mean, get away from the monitor, dad. The adversities bisexual people face. Stuff like you're only pretending, you're just gay and in the closet, you're greedy, or the best one, you're just doing it for attention. Hetero people think you're pretending and gay people think you're a threat to their community. And the oddest observation? It's always centered around dong. B-girl? She's pretending and actually wants dong. B-guy? He's just ashamed of coming out of the closet 100%. Like dang. Let my bisexual people live their lives. They're not gay. They're not heterosexual. They're bi. And if I hear Stacey McCuntface say he's dated 3 guys in a row, that means he's gay, not bi. One more time I'm gonna blow a freaking nerve. That guy isn't obligated to date a woman just because your small town peanut brain can't understand how being bi works. It's also possible to find both attractive yet have a preference for one. That 70s show. People say that the last season doesn't count, but I say that the last several seasons shouldn't count either. The reason? It was no longer a show about the 70s. The first couple of seasons were a humorous perspective of the 70s from the eyes of teenagers. Perfect. It had their take on issues and life from that era, and it was genuinely funny. And then in later seasons the plot lines had nothing to do with the 70s, and only had a light 70s aesthetic. The plot lines would have made sense in any decade. Only the first couple of seasons had stories that were exclusive to the 70s. The fact that we consider pop singers to be some great musical talents, yet they almost never write their own songs. They're performing glorified karaoke. Why do great songs get attributed to the most famous person to sing them, rather than the person who wrote them? The fact that everyone seems to be okay with mobile gaming microtransactions that can easily add up to tens of thousands of dollars. Currently playing a mobile game where there are several people who have spent over $35,000 on the game in less than 2 years. Also DLC, pre-orders, season passes. The video game industry is going to heck in a handbasket, and everyone seems pretty okay with it. I haven't purchased DLC in 3 years, haven't pre-ordered a game in more than a decade, and haven't purchased a new game off the shelf in 4 years. I feel like I'm the only idiot not spending money and losing out on gaming content. Being a little more kind and considerate towards waiters, waitresses, people working in fast food and retail. It pisses me off beyond belief how people can be so cruel to them and treat them like they're just crap on the bottom of their shoes. Just because they can't defend themselves doesn't mean people should take advantage of that. Writing I when it's supposed to be me. Can you send the email to Jim and I? No, you'd never say can you send the email to I. So why would you use that when there are two people? Can you send the email to Jim and myself? No, only you can send the email to yourself. That's a reflexive form. Funnily enough, me and Jim went fishing doesn't bother me at all, because it's colloquial and natural, while send it to Jim and I is a failed attempt to use correct grammar. Anyone who calls themselves a memer is an idiot. I like internet in jokes as much as the next person, but Jesus Christ, can't you make a better identity for yourself than that? New housing developments where the houses are built so close to one another you can see your neighbor taking a crap. Bonus if they're built on once beautiful farmland. Bonus if they're made crappy materials and will fall apart in 5 years. Bonus if they're named Buckingham Village or Willow Creek or something equally nonsensical. American cheese is not cheese. It is the trash byproduct you get from making real cheese. It is an abomination and should be purged from this earth. Probably in the top 10 greatest atrocities ever associated with the US is the creation of American cheese. It should be noted that there is a difference between the plastic foil wrapped cheese and real American cheese. Real American is the scraps of Colby and cheddar, but it's mixed together to create a superior melting blend. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.